At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I didn't watch that much Star Trek growing up. I watched Sesame Street, and I remember watching The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. I don't remember. I wasn't a real big TV watcher, but when I was stuck at home sick, I'd see Price is Right. But I do remember a couple Star Trek episodes where they had the tricorder, they called it, that medical scanner. And I knew I wanted to be a doctor, or a nurse ever since I was little. And so when I saw the doctor scan and say what was wrong with the patient, I was like, that's really cool. It also made medicine look easy, where if I wanted to be a doctor, all I had to do was have one of those fancy machines and I could just scan somebody. Well, I've been waiting how many years since residency and since training, where just give me a handheld wand and I can tell you what the hell is going on inside your body. We're not there yet. But I got to tell you, warp speed in technology as it pertains to medical wristbands and things you could do that don't necessarily require thousands of dollars of equipment. Now, there's pros and cons to these. And so RFK Jr. has suggested that we utilize more medical wearable tech. And he's not wrong on that. The problem is I think people are abusing the medical tech and they're interpreting things incorrectly. So RFK Jr. yesterday said that it was his vision that every American is wearing a wearable within 4 years. So whether it's a smartwatch, a smart ring, a fitness tracker. And I like his goal of making these accessible because I got to tell you, my Apple Watch was expensive. I love the goal of let's make sure all households have access, even if it's a blood pressure cuff or it's a pulse oximeter, proper thermometers. How many times do parents call me telling me their kid is sick? I go, what's the kid's temperature? They go, I don't know. I don't have a thermometer. How do you not have a thermometer? So the average person doesn't necessarily have a little medical area in the home. And I think that's going to be later where we go in terms of healthcare, where you have the medical home, where you can be treated at home. Your hospitalization can be at home. If we don't have enough facilities, we only have under 7,000 beds for the whole state of Nevada, per se. Yet we have millions of residents. What if we turn someone's home into a temporary hospital for them? Will they avoid nosocomial infections, getting sick from other people? Will they get better care? Will they have improved outcomes? So in order to later do that, you're going to have some equipment at home. It's just they're pretty expensive. But these wearables, whether they check your glucose level, your heart rate, the metrics, these things can be an amazing adjunct to your healthcare plan. Like, for example, if you have a continuous glucose monitor, you know when your sugar is dropping. You know when your sugar is high. You know when you need to eat. That information can be uploaded and sent to your doctor. So it's valuable. But the problem I'm seeing with a lot of patients is they'll call up saying they have chest pain or they're dizzy. And I want an antibiotic. And I'm like, well, this could be your heart. No, it's not my heart. my Apple Watch said my heart is fine. Really? What did it say? Do you have any T-wave inversion, T-wave flattening, any signs of hypertrophy? What? Well, my Apple Watch said my heart was fine. And so I have to spend hours arguing with people that their wearables are only a sliver of a view of what's going on with your health. That's frustrating because we don't want people having a false sense of security. Now, have these Apple Watches or these wearables save lives? Absolutely. If your heart is going into an abnormal rhythm or your heart rate is jumping high, you'll get an alert if the watch is working correctly. Now, my watch would go up and tell me when my heart rate was up when I was exercising. I haven't heard one ding on this in like 2-3 years. Now, is it because it's an old watch? Or is it because my heart rate has never gone up? Of course it's gone up. I've been exercising. I've been going uphill. I've been wearing weighted vests. I've been working out. So how do you know your equipment is working properly? Not a big deal if you're still going in for your physicals and you're still seeing your medical provider and your equipment is being tested. I would tell patients to bring in their blood pressure cuff because they'd be like, oh, my blood pressure is good. It's good. Well, then when I measured their blood pressure on their cuff with mine, I'm like, you're off 20 points. So these wearables, I have no problem incorporating, embracing, entrusting, interweaving with your medical plan, but only if you are still seeing a medical provider. You are working with them, ensuring you know how to use it, understanding the limitations on what it's telling you. Your blood oxygen level is crucial for us to determine if you're hypoxic, losing oxygen, if you have a cardiac issue, a pulmonary issue. Well, remember there was a study where pulse oximeters might not necessarily be as accurate in Black or African American individuals because of the disruption from the melanin. Well, do patients understand that? If they don't, then they might be trusting a number that's not accurately reflecting their health. So what RFK Jr. Wants as a goal is, I think, right on the money. We do need to incorporate more equipment. I think everybody should have EpiPens. Everybody should have Narcan at the house. I think everybody should have thermometers, blood pressure cuffs, pulse oximeters, proper bandages, proper tourniquets, proper first aid kits. They should have instructions. They should all be trained. Everybody should be trained in CPR. Everybody should be trained in first aid. I think students in school should always be getting recertified to make sure they keep that up. Anybody who has diabetes should have a continuous glucose monitor, even if you're not insulin dependent, because it teaches you about your numbers and it teaches you what to eat. But we're just not there yet because they're pretty expensive. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799 and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. One thing that I cannot flip and stand as it pertains to politics or health or relationships are leaks, telling secrets, divulging something that was supposed to be in confidence. I can't stand that. When I see somebody do that, it to me is probably not the worst thing a person could do, because that would be murder and rape, but I look at that as just as bad as stealing, just as bad as bullying, just as bad as abuse. When you see somebody take something of yours in confidence and then use it to their own advantage, that's some sick stuff. And so when you saw there was that leak with the Roe v. Wade decision that was leaked days before, and then there were these alleged leaks on the bomb damage assessment, in terms of whether Iran could restart their nuclear program or not, you're like, who is the Supreme Court or who is the government trusting? And what else are they going to do? If they are going to leak certain documents, Pete Hegseth had worded this beautifully. When somebody decides to leak something, are they going to leak 100% of everything they have, or are they going to leak an excerpt so that it supports their agenda? So somebody who's leaking something, there's already a lack of confidence in what you're getting because they're already sneaky. I mean, somebody had leaked and said that there was cocaine in the White House, right, during the Biden administration. Did they give us all the facts? Whose cocaine was it? All we are is talk about somebody else, so we all think it's Hunter Biden. I mean, if you're going to leak, then you got to have some ethics. You have to have some work ethic, and you got to tell us the whole thing. But we get pieces, and and then we don't know what to make of it. So after the heroic feat that our military did to help destroy and finish the 1-2 punch as it pertained to what Israel started, as it pertained to Iran's nuclear capabilities, our men and women came home hearing news media outlets saying, you see, there was a leaked intelligence assessment saying that the damage done was minimal. Well, if that was a preliminary piece of paper in the immediate minutes while waiting to survey the damage, which, by the way, we are still, even now, getting reports from Israel and the UN and other individuals on what the damage was. So you're leaking something that's a couple days old That was preliminary. And then all the other media outlets are jumping on top of that. And then what sort of a threat is that leaker or that person within the government? And what is their incentive? Most people that leak like to stay anonymous. So then what's their incentive? Is somebody paying them on the side? Are they, are media outlets paying for somebody to go in and steal a document? See, it's worse than stealing because to leak, you have to steal something that's not really yours. So I don't know much about the damage in Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. But what I do know is if you're going to drop what is it, a 30,000-pound bomb and drop 14 of them with target precision, my guess is there's some pretty serious damage. We've been seeing the satellite images, and I know the media, and here's the problem with politics. Everybody wants to, in the liberal media, be anti-Trump. So if Trump does something that's good, if Trump does something that actually puts back the Iranian nuclear capabilities and may allow there to be longer periods of peace in the Middle East, rather than say good job, they want to find faults. They have to nitpick. The job of the left right now is anything Trump says or coughs or burps or sneezes to rip it to pieces. That's like the art of law. Let's take a look at the defense and let's take a look and see what we could do to make this work for us. I think the football player that killed the other football player, the lawyer was on the news being interviewed, the lawyer for the suspect, saying, we believe we have enough evidence for reasonable doubt and to make it look like, to make it the argument that it was self-defense. See, this is, you're paying people, and there are people where their only job is to try to find the anti-truth or look, and you're innocent until proven guilty. But if they're like, okay, this is what it looks like, this is what the evidence shows, what can you do to poke holes in it? And I find this very frustrating because the market for there to be leakers and for there to be traitors is huge. And I bet these media companies will do anything to get somebody to turncoat or to be somebody that can be on the inside and then give them something else. Now, one person said, well, what if that person was trying to help? They didn't want us to think that the job was finished. So they wanted people aware. I doubt that was their motives. But a preliminary damage assessment, that makes no sense. Who cares what the preliminary was? Now, the UN, from what I understand, a UN watchdog does believe that the mission was successful in terms of annihilating the certain nuclear facilities, but they are concerned apparently about some of the uranium. Did Iran prepare for this and then start moving uranium over? So look, I'm looking at the pictures. I know nothing about what's underneath the mountain. All I want is peace, and all I want is Iran, who has been threatening, whether it's threatening Trump, threatening Americans, whether it's paying Hamas to do what they did and continue to do. I just want them to stop or to be so, shall we say, neutralized that they can't become a threat. And I am really, really impressed with what Trump was able to do and what America was able to do. Keep in mind, Iran has not surrendered. The ceasefire, it can be as temporary as long the word is. It's not a surrender. Iran has not surrendered. They're telling their people how good they did, and from what I understand, they limited internet so that their citizens could only hear the propaganda that they give. Because if they were able to go online and see what everybody else is saying, they'll be like, "Oh, we're screwed." But for those of you who do defy your best friend, your brother, sister's trust, You're a piece of crap. Define trust. And again, it's usually because they want to get in good with somebody else. Well, I'm going to tell you stuff. I'm going to tell you gossip. Gossiping is bad. I can't stand gossip. Now, I do like to be aware of some of the things. Like, oh, really? They're dating? Okay, well, that's cool. Or, yeah, I mean, I do like to be aware because gossip is sometimes news, but I can't stand, though, the concept of that, where if there is something that's supposed to be quiet and now everybody knows about it. If you're gossiping on something that is not necessarily gossip, but you're telling me something that's news that's actually going on, then that's good. But if this is just your assessment, you think somebody's sleeping with somebody else, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear rumors. I don't need that. I don't have time for that. So wasn't Omarosa, I forget her last name, her taping Trump in meetings and then leaking those allegedly? Listen, people, we have a country to protect. We have people to protect. And for those of you doing this BS, you're not only hurting, the country, you're hurting yourself. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So years before COVID, all everybody was talking about was e-cigs and vaping and alternatives to smoking. While we were combating and becoming very successful in getting people off smoking to protect themselves from lung disease, cancer, heart disease, stroke, people were looking for alternatives. Why? Well, because they started gaining weight. Part of the reason why we have an obesity epidemic is because people don't smoke anymore, not to mention the junk food and the lack of exercise, etc. People like the kick they get from nicotine. And so big tobacco didn't necessarily suffer the losses if they ended up finding alternatives or being involved in the vaping and e-cig market. So patients would come to me saying, look, can I use my HRA? Can I use my health savings account? Can I use certain things or HSA to pay for these things because I'm trying to get off smoking? And I'm like, how long are you going to be using these things? Oh, they go as long as it takes. I go, do we know enough about them? You're inhaling something that is bubble gum flavor that has to heat up. There's a battery. How do we know you're not getting in toxins? How do we know this is safer? Now, tobacco smoke, we have a lot of studies on. And so most of us doctors said, look, since we know tobacco is bad, we could assume that vaping might, not be as bad and might be a safer alternative, but we shouldn't assume anything in medicine because what if it's not? So what I told patients is, look, I'd rather you get off smoking without needing to go onto another crutch and putting anything more into your lungs. But if you are going to do it, please, for the love of the Lord, do it for a very finite, short amount of time, since we just don't know what's in it. Well, then study after study came out looking at vaping and how it could cause cancer itself, or erectile dysfunction, or tooth loss. In fact, there was a study looking at seizures in kids. And then we saw children getting holds of these. So some kids who would have never started smoking cigarettes ended up becoming addicted to nicotine because they picked up these pods or they picked up a vape pen. And that made us very, very nervous, because the whole reason why we had this big anti-smoking campaign is to get kids off of it, to get kids off of nicotine, because nicotine is very addictive. And then we have a whole generation now. We have so many millennials and Gen Zs that are addicted to nicotine because of vaping. Well, UC Davis is reporting there's another study that is looking at disposable e-cigs and how dangerous they could be. And they say that these disposable electronic cigarettes and vape pods release higher amounts of toxic metals than the older version e-cig or traditional cigarettes. So they are saying, and this study comes from UC Davis, that where what you think you're doing to prevent toxicity from smoking may actually be more toxic. They say one of the disposable e-cigs studied released more lead during a day's use than nearly 20 packs of traditional cigarettes. The study was published today in the journal ACS Central Science. Now, it said most disposable e-cigs are illegal in the United States, but they're still widely available. Most consumers of these are teens or adults getting them online. They're also highly susceptible to lead exposure. So many people are also getting these from China and other countries. They say inhaling certain metals can increase your risk of cancer, respiratory disease, nerve damage. So they say our study highlights the hidden risk of these new and popular disposable electronic cigarettes with hazardous levels of neurotoxic lead and carcinogenic nickel and antimony, which stresses the need for urgency and enforcement, according to Dr. Brett Poulin, assistant professor at UC Davis Department of Toxicology. These risks are not just worse than other e-cigs, but worse in some cases than traditional cigarettes. So, they said when they first saw the high concentrations, they thought their instruments were broken. They were really shocked by the data. I'm not shocked, because who's making these things? These are not medically made. They're rather than tobacco, which is rolled and in paper, you're using something that's in metal. You're heating metal. And we've been talking about the toxins that have been dripping into the vape, not to mention when you have heat, you have chemical reactions. So you could be making formaldehyde. You could be making other components because you have to heat it up to turn it into a vapor. Now, people will say, well, then tell kids not to get disposables. Tell kids to get reusable. If reusable, have less toxins. A teen is not going to get something that they have to save. Okay? Because when I walk the dog, I can't tell you how many vape pens I see along the sidewalk, because kids will use them, and then before they get home, they throw them out the window and they litter with them. Kids want disposable. Nobody's going to sit there and hold on to it so that somebody can find it later. So there's a huge market for it. And how do you get kids off of this? Kids are going to want to do something, whether it's viral, whether it's something to wake them up, whether it's something that's cool. And when I heard about vaping, I was nervous about it. I just didn't think it was going to be the healthiest and safest alternative to smoking. And looking at chromium, nickel, antimony, lead, these are things we don't even comprehend. What could be some of the health risks? What about the neurological damage? What about the heart? We know that vaping has been linked to heart disease, stroke, etc. But remember, there was a study years ago about seizures. Well, if vaping is affecting, it can be increasing one's seizures, then that means we're assuming there's some brain involvement. Let me see if I have that, because that was frightening. Hold on a second. I have a cobalt. There we go. More reports of vaping linked to seizures in teens. I wrote this in 2019, where the FDA was investigating multiple reports of seizures in e-cigs. And the FDA commissioner at the time said they were looking for data, and they were looking at the long-term effects. They didn't have the mechanism yet, but they did warn people that this could be related to neurological disorders. So what I recommend for those of you with teens, because the average teen is not listening to my show. Okay, the average teen does not want to be told that what they're doing is hurting them. We can't change the concept of teens wanting to be involved, teens wanting to be cool, teens wanting to not be the person that says no. But if you can't have those honest conversations, bring them to a doctor. You would be surprised at how many teens do not want to be sick, do not want to have lung issues. When I hear of these kids that are coughing and coughing for 3-4 weeks, I ask them, do you smoke, vape? No, absolutely not. Now, their parents are right there in front of them. So I say, good, because those who smoke or vape, the cough can go on for a while because the lungs have been weakened. And when you lose the elasticity of the lungs and you lose some of the ability for the lungs to have their immune function and for them to regroup after an illness, the last thing you want, I'm proud of you for not smoking or vaping, but the last thing you want is something making your lungs more weak, because you could then be having chronic lung issues, or your lung infections could last longer. So, I'll try to get that education to them, and maybe it'll help. But, personally, what I want to tell them is don't be flipping stupid. Don't be flipping stupid. Don't be putting anything in your lungs that don't have to be there. But these things are disgusting. The metals, the heat, we don't know what's going in them. And we're having study after study saying this is bad. But this is one of the first studies that is saying that this could be more dangerous than cigarettes. So that doesn't mean go and smoke up a cigarette, but why are you doing this if you think it's healthier when it's not? 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So why is minimum wage $7.25 an hour? Still. Why? It's been like that for what, 15 some years? Both Republicans and Democrats have sponsored bills to increase the minimum wage. What's going on? Why isn't it going up? According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, around 869,000 workers in the U.S. earned the federal minimum wage or less in 2023, more than two-thirds of whom were women. Some workers may earn less than the federal minimum wage because there are exceptions built into the law, like tipped employees. And I remember when I was waiting tables, I was making about $1 an hour. But then I got the tips. And so I ended up I was happy because I loved my tip money. But if tips are not going to be taxed and we're making changes with those, in fact, a lot of states are now saying, no, tipped workers still get minimum wage. But, I'm mixed on what's going on because minimum wage should not be $7.25 an hour, but there have been recommendations to make it $30 an hour. Well, a $30 an hour minimum wage will wreck small business. And we're giving in to the high costs of things. I mean, Joe Rogan was talking about this, how, if somebody's trying to buy a meal and the meal is $21, they have to basically work at least 3 hours to pay for that one meal or sandwich. Why is a sandwich or a meal $21? And the more we raise the wages, the more people charge, and more people charge, and more we have to raise the wages. We saw what happened when California went to $20 minimum wage for fast food. Fast food used to be employed by teenagers who were trying to make extra gas money, etc. So I was trying to support myself on $4 an hour when I was in the 90s working fast food while in college. And I did what I can. I worked multiple jobs at $4 an hour. But then again, things were cheaper. Rent was cheaper. I remember the apartment was about $435 a month, and I shared it with two other people. So I only had to pay one something plus power. And so, I was able to, I didn't have a lot of money, but now apartments are $2,000-$3,000 a month. Food is expensive. Gas is expensive. So the answer that states and politicians have is we'll pay workers more. When you pay workers more, things start to get more expensive. I'm looking at the prices of things go up. I had to get an oil change. And the oil change, I was blown away. It went from, I remember getting $29.99 oil changes. My last oil change cost over $200 at the dealership. And we went to the dealership because sometimes when I go to the non-dealership places, something happens and then I get a sensor. But I think it was $250 to change your oil. That's a lot of money to change the oil. But we paid it. But it's because they have to pay their workers, and their workers deserve a higher wage, but it just keeps going up. A bunch of cities in L.A. are raising their minimum wage. Alameda is going up to $17.46 an hour. Berkeley, $19.18 an hour. Emeryville, about $20 an hour. San Francisco, close to $20 an hour. So, $20 an hour really changes your bottom line as it pertains to labor. And even though people need that to live, how do we stop this vicious cycle? Every year, we are going to be having conversations of whatever they're making isn't enough. Even the $20 an hour minimum wage is now being touted as, no, that's not enough for fast food workers. Why? Well, because everything went up. Now, if they want to buy a sandwich, it's more expensive because that job has to pay them more and pay the workers more. So now everything has gone up in price. There's a pizza place that was next to, was on my way home. And I keep showing you pictures of how the cost goes up for 2 slices and a drink. What started out as $6, $7 is now $11. So almost double in a few years. Now, I know Trump has done a lot to minimize inflation, but when you tell a company, you need to pay your workers more like Biden did, the company pays their workers more, they're going to make sure the customer covers that. So now the customer has to pay more. I'm looking at great clips and supercuts. You don't see a $6 haircut anymore. You see a $29 to $32 haircut. After a while, these companies are like, to hell with this. So in California, business owners are getting really nervous because there's been recommendations. I guess there's been a municipal ordinance saying all larger hotels in the city must raise hourly wages by $2.50 a year until they hit the mandated $30 an hour in 2028. So in 3 years, they need to be paying $30 an hour. And it seems like a lot now, but in 2028, with the way the prices are rising, it's going to seem like, well, wait a second, now we have to go up again. And we as consumers keep paying. I want people to be able to afford to feed their family. I agree with Joe Rogan. It's ridiculous that parents are making $10 an hour trying to feed their family with that. But every time we raise the minimum wage, the prices go up. So we're not solving the problem. What we really need is the American consumer, as I've said this before, to say, I'm not going to pay $21 for a salad or $22.95 for a chicken sandwich at a restaurant. Or I'm not going to pay $12 for a lunch meal at fast food. I'm not going to pay $4 or $5 a gallon for gas. I'm not going to pay 50, 60 grand for an electric vehicle. If people say, I'm not going to buy it, I'm not going to spend that money, the prices will go down. If the prices go down, then maybe we could reevaluate, what we need to do in terms of making the bottom line with the higher wages. Once you raise the wages, you can't go back. So if you start to pay somebody $30 an hour, you can't tell them I'm going to pay you less than $30 an hour. But the feds do have to do something with the 725. Now, one reason why it hasn't changed federally is the California minimum wage is addressing California high costs. If Oklahoma is cheaper, you can't come up with a standard minimum wage that's $20 to $30 that is relevant to Oklahoma with the same relevancy as it is to California. But $7.25, no, that's ridiculous. It has to change. We have to be well above $10, $12 an hour now for minimum wage. But I am getting sick and tired of every single month, whatever I bought is now more expensive. I can't even budget. They say, well, you need to budget for things. I can't budget. My mortgage went up. I'm like, how did my mortgage go up if I'm locked in a loan? It went up. Now, I should understand that, but remember, I went to medical school. I didn't go to finance school. Rent goes up. Electricity goes up. Everything is going up. And the more we say, well, now we got to pay people more, the more people are going to take advantage. There's hardly anybody except the kitchen staff. So we'll see what happens. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away. Hi, guys. Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.